all the options again. Choose background effect.
You can choose it. You can
Oh,
choose a background.
wow, I can choose a background now. This is freaky. Hang on, let me just try something. Let's see if this works. I'm gonna. Oh my
God! I like it. I like it.
Oh my God!
Quick, this is not sponsored by Nappit. Oh, right.
Hang on. I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna. Nice.
Oh,
nice. Now that is much better. Hang on. There we go.
That's good.
E5HQ. I'm loving this. I'm here at the E5 wall. So this is pretty cool. This is something new. So yeah, let's try this now as a new. So this is like automatically rendering or doing something because there's no. I mean, my green screen is. Oh, actually, my green screen is just there. But hey, it's pretty smart to be doing this. Right. So should we just wing this?
There you go.
Right. Let's wing this. You've told you the rules. There isn't that many rules. Yeah. And 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the E5 podcast again. I'm one of your hosts, Paul Meenan, and today I'm joined by one of my tag team partners. Introduce yourself.
Dan Jackson, aka Dan's the Engineer.
Dan's the Engineer. Dan's the Eng Tech Engineer. FIET now, aren't you? Congratulations. You're a formally registered with the Engineering Council engineer, which is awesome, hence the name. And we have with us, I'm not going to call him electrical industry royalty because that gets used too much. We have a diamond bloke, a really nice guy, but he's more importantly from the motherland. He is from the greatest island amongst islands. He's from Northern Ireland. His name's John Lorimer. John, welcome to the podcast. Introduce yourself. Say hello.
Paul, Dan, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here and chatting to you this evening.
So immediately we have to tailor this podcast. What about you?
I'm not so bad. Hi.
There we go. Oh, I'm grand. Sorry. So for anyone listening, if you're not aware or you're not connected, my entire family, mother and father's side, are from Northern Ireland. I am fiercely, fiercely proud of Northern Ireland. I love that land, and I will do everything I can to support the UK as a United Kingdom and Northern Ireland especially. I think it's a wonderful place, and I spent every August of my childhood in Northern Ireland, barefoot up for Dross Mountain in County Tyrone. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Northern Ireland. So you're our first Northern Irishman on this show. So thank you very much for joining us. John, tell us a bit about your background. And not my background, because this is a new background for those watching on YouTube. This is a new feature. How weird. I can have some fun with this. Tell us about your background, what you do, etc.
Yeah. I've been in the industry left school at 16, straight into the electrical industry. Served my time with a local company, spent 14 years there before leaving and trying my hand at contracts management. So went into a junior role, worked my way through several different companies, up through the ranks into management, found my way into PPM manager for a local company for 3 years. And that's really where I suppose the love of inspection and testing grew. I really, really got into it and enjoyed it. I had to leave that company. It didn't work out in the end, but decided then to go on my own, which has been the best decision I've ever made, to be honest.
And John, so you said you got into contracts management.
Mm-hmm.
How was the jump from electrician to contracts management? Because a lot of people struggle getting into that.
Yeah. It was easy to get into, Dan. It was very hard to get your head around. The company I had been with for 14 years. I made them aware that I wanted to kind of make that step up and was introduced to the office, and probably spent about 6 months there and still felt like I was being treated like John the Apprentice.
Yeah.
Doing takeoffs on drawings, doing somebody else's donkey work, not really getting my own contracts to get to grips with. that's kind of why I left. I sort of felt I needed to make that move and walk into a new company to maybe get a run at it myself.
Do you feel having a title of getting into management helped before you jumped to another company? Because that's a lot of people contact me and say, how do you get into contracts management? Because if you haven't got it on your CV, you're just seen as electrician or maybe electrical supervisor. There is a big difference between contracts management.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think definitely it helped me move to the other companies and work my way around. I think showing the initiative, Dan, sort of making that leap and showing not that you don't want to be on site all the time, because I'm back to that now and enjoying it, but to show that you want to progress. I think showing that initiative really helped then other companies.
So if you don't mind me saying, for me, I find if you show an inch of passion, you can very easily work your way up. You can be catapulted. The trouble is when you're catapulted, you're the one in control of the flying, and you can fly gracefully, or you can hit a brick wall very even quicker. And I have seen in my career others catapult themselves just because they were inquisitive enough to care to want to step up. And when they did step up, they were given careful steps and consideration, and then 12 months later thrown into the deep end. And when they've got into the deep end, they've just hated it and desperately tried to get out and realised they were stuck.
You definitely need guidance along the way, and sometimes that isn't there. But for some people, they thrive off that, I guess. Just making your own steps. That's definitely my kind of way into it, because I went from electrician to company owner literally overnight, and really thrown into it. And how long was it from when you got off the tools into management till starting up your own business, which is, if you want to tell everybody what your company is now?
FCS Services, which is Facilities Compliance Services.
Yeah.
Probably 5 to 6 years, I think, Dan. I was in around management, and just back to what you guys were saying there, when I left that company I had been in and moved to the other company, I was as a junior contracts manager, kind of support role, really helping the other contracts managers. And within 6 weeks, I found myself in London 2 days a week, looking after a block of apartments.
Yeah.
Which, like you say, I was running on adrenaline, absolutely loving it, loving life, getting to travel a bit, getting the responsibility to be looking after this job. I think maybe looking back on it, I was probably naive, because I was offered, do you want to look after that little school round the corner? Oh yeah, no worries. Do you want to go to a design meeting across London? Oh yeah, I'll do that. Probably bit off more than I could chew without actually knowing the ins and outs of it.
I have an alternative view on that. Is some people always see you as, I worked in one company where my boss thought I was to a certain extent naive, and maybe I was, but my passion to want to excel and push my own boundaries, I would go into meetings with people far more experienced and senior than me, but I had to give it a go. I had to see if I could contribute, and lo and behold, I did contribute, because I had so much passion. I was constantly learning, evolving. I think the hardest thing for anyone as you're growing through those initial management roles is realizing your own boundaries.
Yeah, that's hard.
The most difficult point. Your own boundaries. Do you just go Billy Blag, or do you actually go, I can't really do this. This is too much. This is really difficult. And that for me is the biggest challenge. I don't know about you, but John, so when I did my apprenticeship, it was for an Irish contracting company. They were all from Southern Ireland. They were the hardest bastards I've known to man. Irish electricians are loveless, ruthless, can be maniacal bastards. I'm not basically saying that's you or our wonderful friend Brian Boyd, who's probably listening to this maybe. Love you, Brian, in the way a man should love a man, not that way. But yeah, Irish electricians can be ruthless. Did you find that at all when you were learning, or was it just par for the course?
I don't know. You look back on it and you think it's par for the course, but the industry has definitely changed. We grew up with 4 men. They were hard. When you were an apprentice, you knew what to do and what not to do, and it's a changed game. Especially coming out of the office and starting my own company and now taking on apprentices, you can see you're dealing with millennials. You're dealing with people
it's so different.
It's so different.
So I mean, I had an Irish foreman on one of the companies that I worked for, and he beat the crap out of me.
Mm.
Literally beat. He was an old boy, and he beat the crap out of me. That doesn't. Well, I don't think it happens on site now.
No.
But yeah, it's very different to how we done our apprenticeships. Which probably for the better, I guess, in some ways. I don't know. There's pros and cons about it, but
I look back on it and I think you learn a lot of lessons very early when you've got a hard taskmaster like that. Brush the floor, go to the shop, carry my toolbox. I have first year apprentices now, maybe 6 months into the job, and they're thinking they should be beyond this. They should be doing more. They should be fitting out boards. So I'm not learning enough from you.
You're a labourer for at least 6 months.
Yeah.
I believe I'm going to turn a lot of people off these podcasts. I'm just going to say these are not the views of E5 Group. I am a big fan of the old school method of apprenticeships, and the reason being is I believe that the pushing and the pressure that you put the apprentices under builds their character, but more importantly, it builds their confidence and their abilities and their skills, so that when they are out by themselves, they don't feel that pressure, which means they're confident in their own competence and they're not going to kill themselves and get found melted, by a consumer unit or something like that. And I think that's lost nowadays. I mean, you've got to be more gentler and more psychological with how you engage with them. But for me, I genuinely believe that banter, that engagement, that character building stuff, because people aren't taught social skills anymore. One of the things I found coming out of school was you'd meet people you've never met before, totally different backgrounds. Their engagement is totally different from the friendship circle you had in school, and their knowledge. So you'd go, how do I engage with these people? I don't have your knowledge, so I don't know if you're joking or you're serious. And it's that growth from school into young adulthood.
Well, I definitely feel part of getting into this industry is pure attitude. And that's why a lot of the older people that come into the industry, they're so ingrained in a different way because they're from a completely different industry, different background. Whereas electrical contracting it's the attitude towards safety, towards workmanship and professional pride. Mm-hmm. And some people, it's harder to teach an old dog new tricks. So I find the youngsters, if they're on the right path, you can mold them very, very well into it, I find. But obviously, like you said, John, there's a lot of kids these days, millennials, who want something for nothing.
Weirdly, you say that. I actually was a client on a job on a railway station refurb, and there was electrical contractor on that, and they had 2 apprentices. One of them, his name's Kane. He's actually listening to this, and he's now contracts manager for the company. And he got in touch with me, and again, he's not aware of this because I've never told him it. But when he got in touch with me, I thought, oh no, I was pretty hard to him. I was really, really awkward. I was an awkward git to him, but not out of horribleness, but to try and put some character building type stuff into him, because he was the boss's son, and everybody was a bit, oh, he's a boss's son. For me, it was just like, great, I'm gonna give him some proper. I'm gonna wind him up. I'm gonna give him some life lessons and some stories that he can tell. And I probably shouldn't confess, I was particularly harsh to him and the other lad until they eventually kind of stood up to me, and that's all I wanted. I wanted to see the conduct of their character. I wanted to see that passion, the zest in their eyes for the trade, because they're going to need it as a defense shield.
Yeah,
you need it. You need that passion, that zest to almost, as like I look at electricians, the passionate ones, as crusaders with a sword and a shield, trying to fight their way through all of the BS and the rubbish, and trying to fend off the bad people, the ones that drag you down, the ones that come to work for you, and all they care about is turning up and going, right, what's the deal? I want extra money. Just you've turned up, now you're going to pay me? No, come on.
Yeah, I hate the question, what time are we getting home? Hate it. Absolutely hate it.
My response on that would be now, because you're sacked. To be perfectly frank, that's kind of, you can only tolerate so much. You can only tolerate so much, to be honest with you. And
But at the same time, and you know, apprentices to me are so vital for a business's growth because they're the future. The youngsters are the future coming, you know, working their way up. We all came from that background. We all started from somewhere, and it's an investment, but a very risky investment these days. So it's tough.
That's our findings on it. Like, you take them on, you make an investment. We have 3 first-year apprentices, and they're helpful to a degree, but you know, you're trying to teach them, you're trying to get the best out of them, and you have to remember, I suppose, at 16, 17, was I fully engaged in the industry? And the honest answer, I had to sit down with the apprentices and say, no, I wasn't. Maybe when I started getting out my time, third year, fourth year, the penny was dropping, and I was starting to really get into it. And that's I probably learned more from that stage on than I had in the previous 3 years. That's when I started feeling the growth in the industry. And it's trying to tell the apprentices the same. Look, you have to give it time. You have to just do as you're told. You have to learn, sit back and learn, and someday you will be able to take the lead.
Yeah, and that's it. They just need to sit back and absorb and watch and learn and see the mistakes happening, see the positives, you know, bathe in the successes, remember and learn from the failures. Everybody makes them. The one thing I will say about you, John, is so I met, it's fair to say on this, so I met John, I can't remember how many years ago now, about 3 years ago now. I went over to Northern Ireland at the invite of Derek Thompson to do a talk on the draft for public comment, which I had read, and I put together a PowerPoint and was trying to give people insight into it so that it encouraged more people to comment. And it was, I think it was like 800 odd pages, wasn't it, in a loose leaf binder that I had printed the draft. It was insane. That was the first time I met John. Then we sat our 18th edition together over in Northern Ireland as well, at the ETT Electrical Training Trust, Northern Ireland. So I was over there doing a lecture, but during the day we did the 18th edition City and Guild 3-day course, which was an interesting one, to say the least. It was
the first one to be held in Northern Ireland, wasn't it?
It was as well, and I didn't expect to be getting up halfway through it and showing people DC immunity and kind of going, right, here's the bits that have changed, folks, because the lecturer had only spent like the boat journey over reading the 18th edition because it had only come out like 2 days before or something like that. But yeah, the one thing I've noticed about you, John, which I like, is not your debonair boyish charm and good looks, but it's actually your social media presence has always been I choose to be positive. I choose to see the good, and I only want to attract the good. And I also love, again, on a side note, the fact you're fiercely pro Northern Ireland, because you've done stuff in Northern Ireland where I've wanted to just jump on a plane and go, I need to go over there. I need to go over there. Just, you've created a good circle of positive people around you in Northern Ireland. That includes Brian, who now. So how does the relationship with you and Brian? So is Brian a competitor, electrical contractor, or are you kind of a collaborative contractor?
No, we're.
There's plenty of work.
Different strings to a bow, and there's plenty of work. We've never worked directly together, but I would never go against Brian either. If you know what I mean. We're not really in the same circles. Man.
We shouldn't be talking nice to him. He'll get his head all swell up if he listens to this.
I know.
Yeah, but Northern Ireland's booming. You go to Northern Ireland, you go into Belfast now. My God, the construction in Belfast is just it's incredible.
The influx of new hotels and stuff over the last few years has been unreal. It really, until this, it really has been a boom time for us, and it's great to see, to be honest.
It is, because Northern Belfast. I've got 2 sisters that live in Belfast, and Belfast was a bit of a dump for many years with the Troubles, and it's absolutely fantastic because I always get the boat to Belfast and I drive through Belfast, and it's great to see the skyline going up and the big wheel and all of the tourist attractions, the Titanic exhibition and all the other stuff. The Game of Thrones stuff you can go on the northern coast to do. Giants, it's great. Northern Ireland's got some amazing stuff to do. I always recommend people go there because it's just a beautiful place to pop across to, really. It's a shame it's got lots of Liverpool, Man United fans in Belfast, though. I'd never understood that. I have to encounter them on the boat, you see. Going
No.
back and forth because my dad's in Northern Ireland still, so he's still chasing cows and doing what he does. Okay, so quick question for you then. As a business, you are SparkSafe accredited. Now, you're from the land where SparkSafe originated from. So how have you found SparkSafe for your business? Because obviously I use it in the UK, but how have you found it?
Well, going back in my previous employment, it was probably when SparkSafe started to hit the ground. We were mostly public sector tenders in that company, so SparkSafe was in the tenders then. First time it came about, and you'll know this anyway, there was a lot of uproar from electricians having to pay the money, didn't see the point. Oh, we don't get a card. You know, that was the biggest gripe. We don't get a plastic card. I really do see the benefit of an electrician having it, especially when it's going to lead to that public sector work for you or for your company. It just makes total sense. Anything to improve the industry is a plus, a positive. As a business, FCS were SparkSafe registered up until recently. We sort of decided that public sector wasn't going to really be for us. We stuck to the private market, and that's where we're going with it.
I think the private sector is booming as well, though, isn't it? Lots of investment.
It is. Lots of investment. Lots of good pharmaceutical work. You know, there's lots of good industries in Northern Ireland that are punching above their weight. You know that, Paul. That's one thing. As a small country, we do well with sporting stars. You know, we punch above our weight, and it's good. It's a good country to live in because you always think you can achieve more than you are because you look around and you see others that have done it.
One of the big things that Northern Ireland did brilliantly recently was the getting the Game of Thrones TV show over there. That's done amazing for tourism in Northern Ireland and the economy as well. You have a multi-billion-pound world's biggest TV show for 8 seasons, and one of their primary filming locations is Northern Ireland. It's just it's a love letter to the country, really. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about Northern Ireland in that way, because I've always been based in the southeast of England.
Yeah, sorry about it. He's the southeast. yeah. I mean, all right, guys, all right. Yeah, Cockney shuffle.
And work's always revolved around London. You know, it's the biggest city in the UK, and it's, again, I know a lot of sparks from up north, Scotland, all over the place. London is different, very different. It's highly competitive, highly competitive. Decent companies, they're few and far between actually, because there's so many of them and everyone's just kind of having a stab, which does cause some issues. But at the same time, if you're a good company, you really do stand out, and I'm sure that's no different to anywhere else. But I've also done a lot of surveys and stuff, John, of wages around the country, and Northern Ireland always comes up with the least pay and always comes up with, you know, the least you can charge. But then we can't compare Northern Ireland to London. We can't.
No, definitely not against London. I would say as a business, we get fair rates. You know, we get paid fair rates. I think we pay quite good wages to the guys as well. Just not London rates. We're never gonna punch that high. Northern Ireland completely different to London, Dan, where there are big players here, but it's still a small country. I know contracts. I've been at any company I go to, any large electrical contractor in Northern Ireland. I walk into their office, I know 2 of their contracts managers at least. There's one company we do work for, and I could guarantee you I know 8 to 10 of the staff, and that's just because they've all been in other companies or bumped into them before.
It's a
or
small
grew
world
up
scenario,
with
isn't it?
Definitely.
Northern Ireland is a very, very small world. It's really weird. When I go over there to my dad, I always, for some reason, end up in Enniskillen in one of the wholesalers. And I end up spending like 2-3 hours in there chatting to blokes and trying to, because the wiring, it's really weird. My dad's got a house in Northern Ireland, and it's all wired in double insulated singles. Double insulated singles, Dan. It's
I've seen
lunacy.
them. I've seen them in houses before.
Yeah, no, but for me, I was just like, my dad was going, "Oh yeah, put this light on." I was like, "Why have they wired this in double insulated singles everywhere?" You know, what lunatic came to the luminaire and decided to strip all this back? And it made it an absolute bit of a nightmare for me, to be honest with you. So I'm going out to the wholesalers to try and get bits and bobs, and you end up sitting there chatting with lads. And there is a good from the events we've done. There's a good group of contractors, and when we did that hotel one with the 18th edition, when me and you did the course, there was probably about 60 odd people turned up. There was an NIC guy, area engineer, turned up. Everybody knew each other. Everybody was respectful towards each other, which was nice, because you can tell from the amount of eyeing on the wind. So anyone who knows sorry, John, I'm going to do the eye thing here. So when you're in Northern Ireland, you can have a conversation just by using the word "I," which means yes. So my father, for instance, when he's with his mates, they'll just go, do you see that lad there? Aye, 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 aye. And it's like, hang on a minute, have you just had a conversation using the word "I"? Aye. And you're like, wow, so much inflection in the word "I," and there's so much meaning. But yeah, no, one thing I found over there as well is like a lot of the electricians, a lot of them, not the city-based ones, but the lads out in the countryside, they're all Section 705 agricultural and horticultural slurry farms. They have got some of the most thankless tasks ever, because coming from a family of cattle farmers, the attitude is just make it work. Just make it work. And then it's got to be cheap. And that, I'm telling you now, is far harder than Mrs. Jones in a house trying to convince her to get RCBOs. These guys are, they're just a nightmare to deal with. Not the electricians, but the farmers. Northern Irish farmers are really quite militant and aggressive. I know, I come from a family of them. But it is quite interesting the amount of the thirst of knowledge for Northern Irish electricians out there for Section 705 agriculture and horticultural. Don't want to kill cows and sheep because that's their livelihood and bread and butter. So it's it's kind of different, the risk profile in sparking out in Northern Ireland, because yes, we have to protect properties from thermal events and risk of electrocution, but you have the risk of agriculture, animals. And it's far more frequent. It's far more riskier. It's different installations, different mindsets, and fair to say, some bad behaviours in society. If it works, it's fine. Never mind, double insulate it. Make sure you can't, get fault voltages.
Well, I'm out in the sticks in Essex, Paul, and it's the same round here. It's a different world. It's anything goes round here.
Yeah.
It's not. You don't see police. You don't see people enforcing stuff. It's literally, as long as you can get away with it.
Country, isn't it?
Yeah, it's complete bandit country.
Yeah, it is. It's bandit country. Okay, so in Northern Ireland, obviously, you guys have to comply with the IE wiring regulations, although you don't have Part P in Northern Ireland, if I remember rightly.
No, that's correct. Thankfully.
You have, and it's really weird because Northern Ireland, I did some research on it. Northern Ireland is kind of like they're the bow wave after we do stuff. So electricity at work regulations 1989 is electricity at work regs 1990. In Northern Ireland, everything seems to have a bow wave, and their building regulations aren't Part B. They're different numbers and the same sort of principle. The content's pretty much the same. Southern Ireland, though, because there's no border anymore, thank God, or the Republic of Ireland, as we should call it. That's got a different standard, which is called, from my wonderful research, it is called ET 101. Published by the National Standards Authority of Northern Ireland, the NSAI, and it looks like there's a new amendment or a new edition. Sorry, it's a complete new edition that's come out for the Republic. That basically this document, I've been reading up on it. It's pretty much the exact same as the regs. Surge protection, fundamental principles, all that. It's exactly the same. AFDDs in it. It's pretty much the same. Have you found, though, that from your experience in the Republic of Ireland, there's any quirky differences? Forgive my hand disappearing. It's this weird background thing that Skype gives me.
Quirky differences. You say no border. You drive across maybe an hour down over the border, and you're not getting ring circuits, 4 mil radials everywhere. Where Northern Ireland standard rings, it's just a slight difference.
I did say Northern Ireland did have its backward moments, but I'm a firm believer in banning of the ring finals. They're just so 1970s. I actually go with the 2.5s on a 20 amp breaker because you're never really going to need more than that unless you're in the kitchen, to be honest with you. But yeah, so they use 4 mil radials in the Republic then. Oh, okay. Do they? Is there any other quirky things they do? Because well, I mean, what do they have? I mean, you're registered with. What are you registered with at the moment? Anyway, you Napit or
Napit, Nikiak, Spark Safe, Safe Electric, which is for south of Ireland.
Safe Electric. So are they like an industry body? How do they work? Are they independent or are they a private company pretending to be a industry regulator?
I'm not even sure, Paul, to be honest with you, what way they're set up.
That'd be something we need to look at.
There were Safe
We got
Electric
loads of
and
voluntary
Reggae at the time.
We got loads of voluntary regulatory bodies in the UK. They all pretend to regulate our industry. They're getting better. I think it's fair to say, slowly but surely, they're all getting better. But I think social media helps everybody having a voice.
Yeah.
Because they can at least collect the best of the ideas and try and implement it and take small steps. Very hard to tell a business what to do unless government tell them. Dan, have you got any questions?
As a contract, so you work in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah, that's right.
That must be quite tricky to kind of go from one standards to the other.
It is difficult, Dan. I'm completely honest. I'm more at home with BS 7671. If we're doing work in the south of Ireland, I'll always have to take my regs book with me. That's completely honest. I don't know it like the back of my hand. Probably 95% of our work is Northern Ireland, UK based. We have a small amount of work in the Republic of Ireland, but we do get offered it. The likes of thermal imaging and stuff we're going down there to do at the minute.
So
that's what it is.
So from a commercial point of view, it makes sense to obviously, if there's work there and you're being offered it, go there.
Yeah, because it's the road networks and stuff have been upgraded in between Northern Ireland and the south of Ireland over the last few years. Europe has pumped a lot of money into the motorways and stuff. So realistically, I could be in Dublin in 2.5 hours from my house.
Oh wow!
So it's not it's not that far.
Ireland's not that big. I've flown into Kerry Airport and driven all the way from Kerry to Tyrone in about 5.5 hours. It's one of the most beautiful drives you'll ever do. I do remember Europe building all the motorways, and some of them were toll roads, and nobody used them, so they just kept on the back roads. Kind of backfired a bit for a few years, but they do have some lovely motorways and service stations and stuff there now.
It's definitely a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah, single lane everywhere it used to be. Ireland's roads were a nightmare unless you went into the big cities, especially out where my family are now. We've actually got dual carriageways all the way out to the towns and villages, and makes a hell of a difference because you're always stuck behind some sort of slurry lorry or tractor or something. It's hell on earth, that is.
So also, John, so if you've got apprentices, I'm assuming they're obviously doing a route. You kind of preach BS 7671. Is it just a case of picking things up as they go, or is it additional training or combination of both?
On the back of working in Republic of Ireland, Dan?
Yeah.
At the minute, we're training them solely for BS 7671. If that changes, once they're out of their time, we can maybe send them for additional training. Depends on workload.
Yeah,
we're really looking to grow the business, and if we pick up contracts in the south of Ireland, which leads to needing that extra work down there, then we'll have to retrain, tool up for it.
Yeah.
John, you do work in England as well, don't you?
We have done. We've worked Scotland, Wales, England, Republic of Ireland.
It's fair to say you cover the entire United Kingdom.
Well, most of those were kind of one-off jobs, like for electrical contractors, maybe doing a hotel or school in England, and we've travelled across and done the initial verification and stuff for them. But we have a contract at the minute for a hotel group with 15 hotels in the UK, and hopefully another 8, I think, to come for their emergency lighting, which is good. So we have tied up with a UK-based contractor to do those on our behalf.
Cool.
So on
Yeah.
that, so I've been researching this 101 ET 101 standard, and it's aligned with Senelec, which basically means a numbering system in theory should be the exact same as 7671. The trouble is like John was saying, you'd still have to bring your book. You'd still have to do the check-in.
Yeah.
Because everybody gets to do their own local variants, their own 200 type clauses. But looking through it,
so there's no Irish code breakers.
Look, IS 10101, right? So IS 101 clause 411.3.4, RCDs will now be required to install in lighting circuits. Sounds familiar? Yeah, a lot of these clauses that require, the designer to sign off, these are pretty much completely in line with BS 7671.
Yeah.
So clause 51215 requires that the appropriate person that the installation complies with the EMC directive. It's the exact same as 7671. That exact same clause number 51215. So a lot of this should be harmonized. The trouble is I'd still love to see a copy of it, because there will be their isms, their quirkisms, their variants and stuff like that, and how they code stuff. And I do love the fact that right at the end of this article I'm reading, there's a 6-month transition period, but the technical committee 2 experts, where is it? It says that they that's it. They have a website where they want where they call it Your Standards, Your Say web portal, which sounds very engaging for electricians to contribute, comment, put their thoughts.
Yeah.
Our system, as you know, is a bureaucratic, hellish nightmare on the BSI system. The BSI system is broken and not fit for use. And when you look at the actual draft website, they've got a special website just for drafts for public comment. When they close the draft for public comment, you can see how many people have commented. And we have got like the special occasions, I think it's for caravans. So there was last year an update to the special occasions for caravans, which will probably be an amendment 2. And that had 1 comment.
Wow.
There are loads and loads and loads of parts of this book, okay, which go out for draft for public comment as their harmonized document, IEC 60364 part whatever, and they just, nobody comments on them. And it's because it's so damn bureaucratic to get in there. I had an email from one on, I think it was battery storage, and the battery storage one came out and was available for 48 hours, and yet British Standard Zero says it's got to be 6 weeks. So we don't even get the chance to properly. There is certainly bad form, to use a kind term, on the way that these standards and commenting, and all of the standards, you can't change them. You can only tell them how it can be reworded better for the intent. So if you say, but this is wrong and bad for our industry, they don't care, because the people whose names inside of this book and the companies are the ones that will dictate your future, which I genuinely do believe to be very, very monopolish and very draconian and very wrong. Feel free to tell me otherwise, but
I agree.
That's got to change at some point. It's got to change at some point.
Well,
they think it won't. They're wrong.
It's our industry.
It's our industry, and these people voluntarily regulate it at our cost. And if we all stopped paying and we all stopped contributing and we all went and did our own thing, they wouldn't have a choice. Yeah. I've always said this. One of my goals, I'll be honest with you, I'd love to write my own wiring regulations, and be far better. No, but they'd be far better than the current ones, and they'd give far more guidance, and they'd be free.
Well, the thing is with BS 7671, it's actually, for the average electrician, it's difficult to read. It's difficult to understand the language. And other BS standards are actually far simpler. But 7671, everyone, there's a lot of people wouldn't even bother opening it up because it's too much. So they go to guides, like these soft guides instead. A lot of people come to me for BS 5839 and part 1, and they say, is there a good guide to read? I'm like, just read the bloody standard. It's actually quite simple compared to 7671.
It is compared to 7671. It's plain English. One thing I think, I don't know what your view is on this, John, but for me, the wiring regulations is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it is quite an intense book. Me personally, what I would do is I would take 7671 and create 2 standards. So I'd create 7671 part 1, 7671 part 2. Part 1 would basically have chapters 1 to 6. And they would be your fundamental principles from selection and erection all the way through to inspection and test. Part 7 and Part 8, which we now know are special occasions and soon to be design considerations, because that's what the new Part 8 will be called. Well, that's kind of almost like that higher level of knowledge and deeper knowledge. But more importantly, you could include more special occasions so that it gave more guidance. Because look, there's like 57 special occasions in the numbering system, but we've only got 17. So there's lots more knowledge out there we're not being shared with people that could really do with that. And if they made it bigger, you could then have 2 larger standards books, but one is your baseline select and erect anything, then with more specific guidance. Oh, I've gone all white. More specific guidance and your design considerations. I think that would give better value, because then you could train people on, say, a City and Guilds 18th edition Part 1, which would be your understanding of chapters 1 to 6, which you could bolt into the apprenticeship. But then your almost advanced would be your applied knowledge of special occasions and your design consideration, which you could make a level 4 qualification along with design courses. Do you know what I mean? I think that would be really good way of subdividing it, allowing people to focus on that stuff. Apologies, by the way, I've noticed my parts of me disappear. This is a new background filter that.
Yeah, so if you're watching on YouTube, you Paul's doing all sorts of funny stuff.
It's very strange, this. So yeah, I've just updated Skype. This is awesome. I don't even have a green screen behind me, and it's just put our logo. Do you know what? I'm going to have some real fun in future podcasts with these behind. If you can think of a funny picture to have behind me, let me know in the comments below, and I will do it. I have no problem having. I might just. You know what? I'm gonna. This is gonna be a nice podcast, not a sweary one. So I'm gonna leave it there. But put your comments below, without a doubt. Put your comments below. John, where do you see the future of electrical contracting in Northern Ireland?
Oh, it's a difficult question. I hope we're moving in the right direction. I hope the current crisis isn't going to put a lot of companies out of business. We've had sort of large contractors go out of business within the last 6 to 8 months, maybe over the last year. The company that I served my time with for 14 years went bust. You know, we were good, solid companies, that were brought up doing things. Like I was brought up doing things right, and they've gone to the wall. I really hope this doesn't affect it. I hope we can bounce back and construction gets opened up again, hopefully in the next few weeks, and we can go forward.
It all depends on finance, doesn't it? That's the thing. And I mean, the banks are bloody laughing at the minute. Everyone's borrowing, and we've just increased our debt because everyone's like, you know, I get a grant or I get this loan, and it's like it comes from somewhere. If it's come from the government, guess who pays it? The taxpayer, us. And if we're in debt, we have to pay that back, and it's, you know, it affects further time.
Yeah, it should be said that we're recording this during the lockdown, the coronavirus lockdown. We should have said that at the start. For me, I agree with you. The one thing I think it's fairly evident, I suppose, as you get older in this industry, John, you will always see the big companies go. I remember when I first started, there were companies called Drake and Skull. There was William Stewards, who got bought out by ABB, and they were called ABB Stewards. I remember a company called Electrical Installations, EIs. And they were like companies that blokes were proud to wear the fleeces, the t-shirts. And I have watched most of the big contractors in the last 20 years go to the wall. The only one that hasn't is the Tommy Clarks of this world.
Yeah.
Everybody else has fought, you know, and Bailey Rail failed. MCOR Rail, they failed. They went bankrupt and ended up all their guys being sacked, and this is the trouble. It's one of the things I've found really hard in sparking or in management. You end up with lots of jobs, and when you're going for an interview with a CV that's got lots of different roles, sometimes you worry when you have to go and explain, I've worked in construction and contracting by its inherent nature as you go from job to job to job to job.
Yeah, and Paul, I'll be honest, the type of work I used to do in contracting was direct for the client. It wasn't construction, although we done a little bit of construction. It was mainly in occupied buildings, and it would be looking after a portfolio of buildings. If I saw a CV of an electrician who's just gone from job to job to job to job, it would put me off straight away, because construction is very different to the type of work that I used to do.
I agree.
I agree too. We've obviously done a bit of employment over the last sort of year, and I agree if I see CVs, but it's really obvious, like CVs coming in with 6 months with one employer, you know, and then 6 months with the next one, and 6 months with the next one. It's very hard to look at that guy and go, oh, he's going to be a solid guy, let's bring him on the books.
So
I was helping
it is.
I was helping a company recruit recently, and we was looking for an electrical supervisor. And the problem with putting a title out as electrical supervisor is that you get construction work supervisors, and a lot of them were self-employed or have a limited company, whereas we were looking for somebody to be PAYE and come on board. We want him to be part of the furniture, have a package, and develop them and everything else. It was so difficult. It took months to get somebody, simply because the people applying were the site supervisors, which then go, yeah, do you know what, this role look good for me, I want a bit of job security, but they're wanting £300 a day. It's just not realistic when you're in that scenario.
I wouldn't get out of bed for £300 a day. Get out of bed.
He's not joking.
No, I know.
I'm not joking, actually.
I know.
Genuinely not. No. For an engineering role, for an on the tools, that's for an on the tools supervising, running a men, £300 a day is fantastic money. You need to know what side your bread's buttered at times, and that is good. That is good, solid money. But for that money, you'd want a good day's graft. You want a good day's productivity. That comes from nowhere. That's got to pay for itself.
Yeah, exactly. It all depends what line of work you're in, and a lot of people working on short-term contracts where the money is a little bit higher because they can just ditch them tomorrow if they want to.
Right, John. Moving on. I've got a few more. I've got a few more bits I want to talk to you about. Social media. You're quite prolific on it. When you're active, that's it. You're active on it. Sometimes you're not because you're busy, which is good because you're working. But you've got that positive. What's your view on the different forms of social media? I mean, I've recently just switched off my Twitter account because I'm fed up with Twitter. So my Twitter account's gone.
I agree with you. I have Twitter. I have a business Twitter and I have a personal Twitter. And I don't really use either, to be honest. It's not, no disrespect. I see FCS. This is my vision. This isn't blowing my own trumpet. I see it as a brand.
Yeah.
And we're trying to attract a certain clientele, which is commercial and industrial or pharmaceutical, that level, or multi-site clients.
Yeah.
I find Twitter is domestic electricians arguing, calling each other names, nitpicking. It just drains me, to be honest.
Yeah.
You have to.
Well, I can't take it anymore. To me, it was the most toxic of all of them. I would rather develop what time I have to develop my Instagramming competence on the E5 one. I think so. I don't know. I genuinely don't know, to be honest with you. I feel, okay. Well, on our E5 one, we just try and put information out there, bite-sized info that kind of stimulates the grey matter. That people can, have a look at the photos and debate it over their lunch times. It's supposed to be a learning tool. Everybody else can do tool reviews. This is a learning tool. So that's kind of like the E5 one. My own personal one is just me and my photos and weird stuff. But yeah, Twitter for me, toxic as hell. Facebook, I'm only really on it for old schoolmates. Sadly, I don't really do much with the E5 page on Facebook because it's just, I don't really use it. I just don't like logging into it. It's not great. I've got a couple
LinkedIn
of bits.
Is where it's at.
You what?
LinkedIn is where it's all at.
Not for electricians. Electricians, the trouble is we are seeing now, since this COVID-19, a lot of electricians on LinkedIn, and they are cursing and swearing and effing and jeffing at each other and throwing each other up the bus.
It depends what line of work you're in, because if you're looking to network to actually get work and business,
oh god, yeah,
and you work for homeowners, you're not really going to get that from LinkedIn at all.
No.
You're certainly not going to get it for Twitter when you call everybody a see you next Tuesday when you get pissed on a Friday night. So, you've got to think about the use and where you put your time and energy.
Yeah, well, sorry.
No, sorry. That's what I say. We set out to aim for commercial and industrial clients. So LinkedIn is perfect. that's why I spend most of my time there. I will copy and paste posts off LinkedIn and post it on Facebook just because I've already created the content.
Yeah.
But I get my aunt, Aunt Helen sort of giving me a thumbs up on it on Facebook. I don't really expect anybody to understand it on Facebook. You're digging into maybe the technical side of things.
I like the way you've pushed your own personal and social boundaries on it. You've gone on a journey on your social media, which I like because it's honest.
Yeah, no,
I like
definitely.
the honesty of it.
Yeah, definitely. It's honest. Yeah.
That harks back to the podcast you've done as well, sort of mental health and that sort of stuff. It's probably before I started FCS, I had my own personal troubles and came out through that. And starting the business probably helped give me a lot of focus, give me something to really promote and be proud of.
Yeah.
I just that's the whole positive attitude as well. I just try and keep away from
I think
the negative.
A lot of people though during this time at the moment are, especially during this time, finding themselves something to keep busy with.
Yeah.
I mean, I see on Twitter all of these stupid challenges, and I don't engage with any of it. I think it's just.
Oh, I do.
Well, I know you do. I know topless challenges and all the rest of it. I'll be honest with you.
Topless.
I cringe. I cringe when you're doing all these handstands and stuff. I'm too busy. I'm too busy trying to keep people in work and keep a railway running. And it's interesting to see people during these times how their behaviours are.
It is interesting because a lot of guys that I sort of work for, deal with, or whatever, they are twiddling their thumbs and they want something to do because they're so used to being so switched on day in, day out, and they don't know and what I find it interesting because obviously, well, it's 2 years ago now. Obviously, I quit contracting and also found myself in that position. It's like, well, what do I do now? Like, it's strange. It's such a weird thing because for so many years, I was literally just working my arse off day in, day out. And, so physically and mentally.
You were shot. You were absolutely knackered. That Ali Pali where you had. So Dan had told us he was leaving and he still went to the next Alexa Ali Pali. And he brought his van and he had every single thing. Was it Ali Pali or was it the Excel? Firex. And me and Dan met up at a Firex at Excel, parked in Excel, you'd think really secure. And he had his van done over and every single thing he owned was stolen from him.
Yeah, everything.
Just before he buggered.
Everything I owned. It wasn't because
literally.
I've sold everything from my house anyway. So my personal possessions were in my van, including laptop, camera, everything that I was going to take with me. All tools that I've collected throughout time. And this was part in the multi-story car park at Firex. They have security that drive around and they just tore the door off. They just tore it off. Yeah, peeled it off. And within seconds, everything gone. And I was like, well, this is crap. But yeah, it is what it is.
It is indeed. I normally finish up these with our do you have any more before I get to my last question? Dan, do you have any more comments or thoughts or questions you have for John? Because
yes, I do. John, just through your experience, which I have followed you for quite a while now on social media, and we've been connected and chatted, offline as well. As a business owner, growing from, just deciding you're going to start up, what sort of advice would you give to somebody who wants to take that journey?
The same advice I got. If you think it's for you, if you're having those thoughts or entrepreneurial thoughts, I hate calling myself an entrepreneur, but when you start a business, and you take the risk, it's partly what you are. Go for it, but throw yourself in, head, heart, everything at the start. That's really the social media content I put out now. I put out 3 years ago when I started FCS. I talked like a bigger business. I talked about a brand, about integrity. Talk about your values. Don't just talk about yourself as I'm an electrician. Do you want a socket put on?
Yeah.
Think big, and slowly you'll get there.
It's almost like a manifesting your own future.
Well, you promoted a behaviour and a set of values.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was what to me made you stand out, which I was kind of chuffed with.
What are they again, John? Like
quality, integrity, and value.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's good.
When you hold yourself accountable to a set of principles and you put it on the side of the van, that's what I always say. It's on my website, it's on my van, I'm shouting it on social media. It's hard then to go to a client and try and rip them off and show no integrity.
Well, I love that, right? Because it's the same as having accreditations. You either treat it as a tick box, or you actually, employ, and
it means something to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they have to mean something to you.
Yeah.
I've seen so many contractors that are NIC, ECA, and everything else registered, and I go, so what are the benefits? Why do you do it? What does it project about you? What does it say about your business? And a lot of them go, oh, I don't know, just had to get it. Well, kind of wasting money then, aren't you, really? Does it change your behaviour, your personality, your vision for your company? Does it affect the way your men work for you and with you? And yeah, that's it's always an interesting debate. Any more questions before I ask my final and favourite questions?
Not from me.
So we have this thing which we've kind of just introduced now, and it's 3 wishes. So John, if you had 3 wishes for this industry or for yourself, what would they be? Yeah, I know.
Ooh,
don't worry. John and Dave got stumped by this as well the other day.
It's difficult.
It can be for yourself. You can't just say, I want to be a multimillionaire and I'll fix everything with money. Little things that bug you that you'd like to see fixed or improved, or
I would like to see a more united front for the industry. Like we've talked about Twitter, we've talked about sort of social media. There's so many, I call it like factions in our trade.
I agree with you. The trouble, I think, I don't see it in that respect, but I do see the trouble with an industry that's effectively not regulated and that is about money. You will always see that. You and I both know on every single job, there's always been a spark who's sat there and gone, how many hours is he getting a shift? What's his day? What's his hourly rate? I've got to be on the most money. There is that needy and greedy and that selfish attitude that exists in sparking, especially on major sites. I think that sits generally across a lot of the trades and amongst a lot of sparks, which always inherently causes conflict. I kind of stay out of all the conflict stuff. We choose to because we're not doing any of this for money, so it's kind of irrelevant. But yeah, I mean, yes, I agree with you. More united front, but it's very difficult because I'd like to see all the industry bodies fully united. NIC, NAPIT, and ECA, but they're all private for-profit companies. Never going to happen.
Never going to happen. Too, we blame sort of, with all these bigger companies higher up the chain. I think a lot of it's down to the guys on the ground as well.
Of course it is.
Oh yeah, we're all invested.
Of course it is. When I hate it when somebody says, "Oh look, another NIC contractor's done a shit job." No, another contractor's done a crap job. He just happens to have their badge, but they're not their parents. They don't hold their hands on every single job. They can only do so much. Do you know what I mean? And they also have a view of, if you have a poor registered contractor, try and improve them, try and work with them to improve them. Give them improvement notices.
It's like we just spoke about, to be honest. There's plenty of companies out there that want that NICIAC badge to try and get a bit of credibility, but they're still out there fleecing people. But that's down to their principles. That's down to them, and they need to look at themselves. And they need to hold themselves a bit more accountable, I think.
Okay, so first wish then, more unity in the industry. What else would you like to see?
If it was a wish for the future, I would like to see a sustainable workload for FCS, of course.
That's quite a good wish.
Steady growth. No, I don't want to be rich or a millionaire. I don't see that as the end game. I'd like to be safe and secure workload.
Yeah, far better. Slow and steady, comfortable, secure. It's far not overstretching yourself is far better than going for the quick win and then just cashing in your chips and hoping that you've played the game better than the other lad.
I think I've seen a lot of companies maybe having to lose their principles when they're doing that. They start growing exponentially, so they do, and they start winning big contracts. It needs another big contract to feed that, and it needs another big contract to feed that, and next of all, quality's out the window.
Funny enough, I know what that's like. Yeah, I agree. Okay, last wish then for the industry. It can be for yourself. Entirely up to you. You're doing well, by the way. You've got as far as John Ward got.
two.
John Ward couldn't have three.
The third one's hard now.
It was a random question we started asking a while ago, and it seems to be quite interesting. Some of the responses.
It's a
Three
good
wishes
one.
for the
It's a
industry. You
poser.
can't think of them for one, maybe one for yourself.
Mm.
It's a challenge, isn't it?
That is a challenge.
Well,
I
I'll tell you what. I'll
don't
fill in your final wish. I
Yeah.
wish prosperity for all Northern Irish businesses and contractors, and I'm going to say that with my hand on my heart as the son of a Northern Irishman. So
Good
that's my wish. Although I haven't
Good
been
man.
back this year. I have not been back this year at all. My dad constantly says to me every time I ring him, when are you coming home? When are you coming home? 'Cause that's the trouble. It's home. When you speak to your parents, I grew up in Tottenham, and my dad was like, "Oh, you're going home soon?" I'm like, "We talking about in the kitchen." It was never home. It was never home. But it was always, "Are you going home to see your granny? Or are you going home to see your aunts, your uncles, your cousins?" And massive family in Northern Ireland. So yeah, I remember I've been on holiday in Northern Ireland just to literally go around and visit aunts and uncles. So every evening going to a different kitchen, sitting drinking tea and buns, and just visiting, full-time visiting, 2 or 3 people in an evening. It's an amazing culture in Northern Ireland. It's great.
It's a great
Okay,
place to
chaps.
be.
We're at the hour mark, so let's kind of end this. Dan, anything else to say? Any final thoughts?
I've got a wish.
Go for it.
The way legislation is kind of governed, I think it needs a shake-up. So, for example, currently, the person who's in charge of ensuring that they meet legislation is also the person who's in charge of the financials. That it's the same, generally speaking, when it comes to legislation and media legislation within electrical safety. I think there should be more accountability along the chain, because it will ensure that people are making sure that they're meeting that their section of legislation. It's almost like having consultants who are actually signing their name to something, rather than saying we're doing it on behalf of a client, but then the client is ultimately responsible. If you had somebody else who's taking some of that.
And the trouble is ignorance is not a defence. And I've seen in lots of companies where you go into a major contracting company and they've got a head of safety, and that head of safety is like the get us out of prison card. And this is why I always say to contractors, if you're an engineer or an electrician, if you're going to have a moan up or a complaint, and it's a valid reason, take your complaint to the corporate head of safety, and discharge your duty to him, and he will do something about it. Because if he can receive competent advice, he will make some sort of action, because he's the guy who's got to weigh up that reasonably practicable time cost and all the rest of it. And that's the thing. And the boards tend to listen to their heads of safety, because the heads of safety, the minute they lose the ear of the board, they don't really have a job anymore. They're just there to tick a box, which is never a good position to be in if your head of safety is resigning on you. So yeah, it's a good point, very good point. Yeah, we'll have to do a podcast on Dan's wishes for the industry, actually.
I've got 5, but I won't do them now.
No, we'll do another one. We'll do another one. John, thank you very much for coming on this. It's been awesome. I've enjoyed this one. I need to get Derek on one of these as well at some point, considering I've been talking to him for years. But yeah, thank you very much, John. Dan, you're a legend as always. Thank you very much for doing this. And yeah, that's it really. No, any final thoughts? Anything last want to say?
We're all good.
Right, brilliant. Okay,
well,
awesome. So everybody listening, if you're in Northern Ireland or wherever you are in the world, thank you very much. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Thank you very much for listening. If you like it, please leave comments or reviews and share. I'm doing this because Dan's giving me the eye. And until the next one, take care of yourself and each other.
Goodbye.